Hi, guys.
Hello, welcome.
This is episode 34.
34 of We All Have Stuff.
So,
And
hope everyone's doing well.
thanks for making it this far with us. And
Yay,
on
how
this
exciting.
episode, we're here to talk about one of my favorite topics, the importance of family boundaries.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, this is a big one.
This is a big
Um, why is this such a hard thing for people to have and start and make a thing? Like, what is so tough about family boundaries?
Well, one, it's your family. I definitely think it's like one of those things that's ingrained that you just have been in following your whole life, right? Where your parents tell you what to do, or they give their input on everything, or they're gonna have financial input and they're gonna have something over your head. And take all that aside, I think it's like normal to be like you want your parents' approval and you want them
Yeah.
to be happy and satisfied with what you do. And when that's not there, it's hard to be like, I want to do these things. I'm going to choose this. This is the way I want to do it when you don't know if they're going to approve of it or you don't know if you're going to get the support you want and need because that's painful. So,
Mm-hmm.
what
Sure.
about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that old habits die hard, right? We know that. But also, there's so much changing with the times that sometimes I think it's just a communication of that's not how things are anymore. And just explaining to parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, older siblings, family members that, things are different and maybe the choices that we make and the options that we have are different from what they believe was true 30, 40, 50 years ago,
Right.
and kind of bridging that gap can be important to just be like, we don't date the same. We don't meet people the same. We don't apply for jobs in the same way. We
Right.
don't market ourselves. It's like there's so many things that are just different now that when you meet someone who's kind of in an older, more traditional thought process or their experiences were just so vastly different, I think it's hard to just expect them to understand where you're coming from. But it's also scary, like you said, like you want to have support, you want to be approved of, and that's not a guarantee all the time.
Right. And that's where I think that what we teach in therapy of like being more emotionally regulated, which is hard,
Mm-hmm.
of being okay when your parents like, well, I think you're doing it wrong, and
Right.
I think it should be this way, and putting their opinion on you super hard. It's like, how do I put that boundary up of, hey, I'm still gonna do it, and like, I don't
Yeah.
want to hear your input, or this isn't helping me. And learning that language is hard because when you grow up
Yes.
in that dynamic too, it's like, how do I set that boundary with family that is toxic or family that's always lecturing me or always telling me what to do or giving their opinion or telling me everything that I don't want to hear? And
Right.
that can be, we fall into just staying quiet, like, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
then
Right.
nothing ever really changes or you don't set a boundary. So it's like
Yeah.
weighing on you every time you're inside of your family.
Right. And I think what you said about having the right language is so important. And, just a shameless plug for therapy, right? Like that's what we do. We can help you with just getting the right verbiage out. But two things that I like to teach people and talk about when you're setting like generational boundaries and boundaries with family members, whether they are toxic or whether they're supportive or helicoptery, like it doesn't really matter where you are. But I think when you're asking for support, what kind of support you need is important to vocalize, right? Like, hey, I already made this decision. I'm not asking for input, I'm just asking for support. I'm
Right.
asking for you to listen, right? That's one. And
Being
then the
specific
other,
and clear, like
yes,
what you said. It's just like I'm just looking for like your support. What does support look like? I just want you to listen. I
right.
don't want to be lectured. I just want you to hear me.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times we say we want support, and usually people don't know.
that's nebulous. That's
Like,
not
yeah,
really,
it's just so
yeah.
broad.
Yep. And then I would say the other two is with parents or family members that tend to want to have input, to just be super clear. I'm not asking for permission. I've made my choice.
Right.
I'm just letting you know. Like this is notification, it's not permission.
Right.
And that's important too because if you come out the gate kind of walking on eggshells, like, hey, I made a decision to do this and I'm kind of wishy washy about it, that's where you're inviting criticism and feedback, whether positive or negative. So if you don't want that and you just want to say, hey, like, I'm just letting you know I booked a 6 week trip to Europe and like, you just need to know.
Right.
Like, be supportive, be excited for me, but like, I'm not changing my mind whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, right? That's the way that you need to use that language to be like, hey, like, share in this excitement with me. That's why I'm sharing with you. I don't want this to be negative. And if you are inviting, like, hey, what are some things I can think about? That's another way to invite them in and ask for feedback and not just shut them out. But you're also not allowing the conversation to be derailed.
Right. Right. I like that language. It's like, it's definitely like when you first verbalized it, there was like that. If you're insecure, you don't went in with confidence. I could hear it in your voice. It
Mm-hmm.
is. It opens it up to be like, well, people are going to give it rather than, I think it's in any relationship, right? If you would go in more confident, like, hey, I actually want your advice, doesn't mean you're going to take it.
Right,
But I want your advice, but also it's just because I'm going to figure out what I want to do. What would you do? That's totally different than,
right.
yeah, just, I wanted to inform you that I'm doing this.
Yep.
But my question for you is, because this is what
Mm-hmm.
you hear from a lot of clients, which is like always the hardest part. The
Yeah,
first part is practicing that verbiage, that vulnerability, that communication.
yeah,
But then it's like, well, my parents, they don't change. They do the same thing over, even after I've communicated and I've set my
sure.
boundaries and I've said, hey, don't talk to me like that. Or hey, stop lecturing me or whatever it might be. Oh, no, my mom just keeps doing it. My boundaries keep being crossed. Then
Mhm.
what does that family dynamic look like?
It's hard because very often what happens is the child or the younger person pulls away, restrains themselves from sharing things. They're very selective about the things that they do share. Sometimes in younger kids, you get a lot of secretive behavior, right? Because you don't want the judgment. But as you grow and you're no longer a child, you're no longer a minor where that parent or grandparent or whatever might feel like they can have a say, at that point your boundary just needs to be very firm,
Right.
you know, where I get you're disappointed or this is not what you would do, but this is what I'm doing and I'm sharing it with you. So if
Right.
you are not willing to hear me, conversation's over.
Right. That part. I think that is the biggest part I think people lack, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, but I do all that, but they still keep doing it. It's like you can still gain control of the conversation by that. Hey,
By not having it.
I already asked, and since you're going to still lecture me, I'm good.
Hmm.
We're good,
Right.
and I'm going to take myself out of this and go talk to
Yeah.
somebody else. And
Yep.
then accepting that that might have to be, then you just learn, oh, okay, like this person's never going to respect my boundaries. So the sadness that comes with me and my mom aren't as close, me and my aunt aren't as close, me, whatever it might be, it's like that wedging of the gap that we really don't want because we're like yearning to just be closer and
Right.
closer, but it's accepting like, okay, I have to keep pushing my boundaries because that's
Yeah.
the reality of the relationship.
And another thing too that I suggest, and I think that this is actually helpful in in a lot of circumstances where the younger person still wants a close relationship with the older person or other family member, but communication is not the way to get it. Find other ways that you can nurture your relationship. So if
Right.
that's like my parent and I love, you know, window shopping or we like thrifting. Go do that with that parent. And maybe it's not, hey, we have to have a heart to heart. I need your permission. I need your perspective, right? What's another way that you can connect and feel closeness
Right.
without necessarily having to go through that lonely grieving process of, we can't talk. That's not my person.
Right.
So I think we've talked a lot about having people in your life play different roles in your life
Right.
too. And the reality is that even if it's very well intentioned from the other person, it may come off as I can't digest and process feedback because that's not what I'm looking for, but I
Right.
still want a relationship with that person. So maybe your aunt or your uncle or your grandparent or your cousin that you struggle communicating and sharing vulnerable things with can be your partner in life for something else,
Right.
and it's not a total wash. You know, I think that that grief is something that a lot of people just say, okay, well, there's nothing I can do. So that's it. It's a lost cause, and my relationship is just null and void, and it's sad, and let me move on and lean on my friends.
Right.
Not necessarily.
Right. It's more of asking the question of, with the information I've already been conscious of, aware of, communicating,
Mhm.
gathering about this
Right.
relationship, what do I think this relationship could look like?
Yeah.
Like, even though it's not ideal, it's not,
Hmm.
it's like accepting, like you said, that grief of, wow, I realize I can't have a deep conversation with this person because, they're
Yeah.
always going to tell me I'm doing it wrong. They don't agree with me and they cut me off, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So, what is another way so that I can, if I still want to have a relationship with them in any capacity, what does that look like for me?
Sure. Yeah, and what does this relationship serve now? And then look at it over time. Sometimes time and space will heal, and I think that's a lot of the reason why many young people these days move away and they move out of their hometown, or they travel and they do things with their life to kind of get a little perspective and then revisit that relationship. Like, I hear all the time, I'm closer with my parents now than ever because I moved away.
Yeah.
And we just needed not to be on top of each other all the time to have closeness. That's one
Right.
way. But also, maybe another way is just making peace with the fact that it's not necessarily the way you would want it, but
Right.
it can be different. It can be something else. And with family, it is really hard because it's scary, right?
Mhm.
It's scary feeling like you're being disrespectful because you're looking out for yourself, or you're advocating for what you need to people who you've always looked up to or relied on.
Right. I think that's an important part because even initially when we opened up this, episode, it's like, why is it hard? Because as your parents and like you literally were a baby and grew up and like you look to them, right? You look to them like,
Yeah.
what do I do? Like guide me and reassure me and love me. And parents do that. And I think that's, you get to that certain age of, that's why teenagers are hard, right? Because they're in that like dependent, but they trying to gain independence. And it's like
Yeah.
that weird state of like, I know you don't, I mean, the parents know like you need me and you're so young, but I also have to learn to let you fall. And then eventually you become an adult, right? So I think that's like that adjustment for parent child relationship is so hard because parents are still trying to parent even though their kid is an adult. And then it's
Right.
like, at what point does that role have to fall back? And like
Hmm.
for every family dynamic, it's different.
Yeah.
Um, but it is like learning to set your boundaries of how do I let myself be the adult and hold the reins and a lot. I mean, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, I think it's hard when there's parents that don't want to let go too,
Hmm.
right? So that makes it harder. Of
Yeah.
like, when there's more a healthier dynamic of parents realizing like, my kid's this age and I have to learn to let them live their life, fly on
Hmm.
their own. Maybe have different opinions, but see where they go with it, and more trusting. It can be healthier to set boundaries in that way because you don't need as
Yeah.
many. But when
Right.
you have
That's
a
true.
family more like inserting,
Enmeshed.
like
Yeah.
this is what you should, why are you doing, questioning, doubting, and inserting that, it's like, oh, okay, it's harder in that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what's helpful too is just basic behavior modification, right? Like,
Yeah.
when you see behavior that you want from a person that you struggle to set boundaries with, praise that behavior, right? Like, hey, dad, I
Right.
really appreciated when I shared with you the other day that I was going through something with my friends, and
Mhm.
you listened to me, and I appreciated that. That's kind of how you can rewire some of
Yeah.
those connections too. And it can feel a little like forced and embarrassing sometimes, but in reality, maybe people are going through their life and they're learning how to be parents, they're learning how to be grandparents, they're learning how to be parents to adult kids. And that's why I think giving them some grace sometimes, and not just being like, oh, they never listen, they've never listened since I was 10 years old, is a
Right.
perspective shift sometimes of like, why did it mean so much to you when you shared something or you asked for an opinion and it didn't come out judgmental or it didn't come out negative that one time? You will always remember that. Why? So reflecting back on that and saying, remember when I shared with you this situation and you really listened and I felt like you heard me? I need you to do that again.
Right.
You
Hmm.
know? that's not disrespectful. It's not hateful. It's not critical. It's really sharing, like, I felt so connected deeply to you in that moment, and I need that more.
Yeah, yeah, it's asking for your needs and wants, right? It's also,
Right.
and then we've talked about this in normal relationship stuff. It's also
Yep.
teaching somebody how to show up and love you, right? Like,
Yeah.
and everyone's different.
Mm-hmm.
I know when we talked about that, my mom, I love my mom, obviously she's a gem, but she doesn't do it nearly as much now, and it's crazy because I did what you just mentioned, like,
Yeah.
how do you verbalize what's working, what's not? But she used to be the queen of a lecture, right? Just because it's like, and she's super positive. So it's
Yeah.
like you're either gonna get lectured or you're gonna hit with just everything's positive, everything's gonna work out. And it's like sometimes like
Yep.
that's not it, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like saying stuff like I just want you to sit there and listen, and like I don't want
Yep.
you to lecture. I don't want all this positive vibe going on because it doesn't do anything for me. It
Right.
makes me actually want to hang up the phone and
Yep.
not call you next time.
Right.
And then obviously if a parent or somebody really wants to work on that relationship, it's like it gets a little easier. Like, all right, last time she told me she didn't like that, so let me
Yeah.
just try to sit here, even though that's the uncomfortable part of,
Right.
okay, I have to sit in the feelings with somebody instead of like, let me just lecture or tell them what to do.
Right.
That's hard.
It is hard. But at the same time, it's very easy to fall into that trap, like you said, of just taking it,
Yeah.
sitting back and taking it and saying nothing and feeling resentful and feeling, well, I'm never going to be the person who has that family relationship that I
Right.
can talk to my parents or, family members about stuff. And I'm so
Hmm.
envious of other people's relationship. But in reality, if you aren't also going to take some action and try to fix it or try to say, like, hey, every time I share something with you, I feel like I get immediate criticism, I get immediate negativity. And hopefully, of course, you're going to have those parents or family members that are like, okay, defensive,
Right.
right
Of
away.
course.
And that's hard. But you may catch them in a place where you're just like, I want to share more with you and I'm really longing for that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it really feels like you snap at me and I can't even get words out before there's feedback. Can
Right.
you just listen? And I want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
So hopefully, maybe in some situations where you have someone who's more open-minded, like, oh, I didn't see it like that. I'm sorry. I just
Hmm.
want to help you. Yeah,
Hmm.
right. I get it and thank you, but that's not helpful in the moment, right?
Right.
Now, what do you do if you have a person who's not receptive, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. I think at that point, that becomes a kind of a judgment call. Is this something
Right.
I feel like I can share with parent, uncle, grandparent, brother, sister? Maybe not. Who can I go to with that same situation and feel supported?
Right.
You
Again, but
know?
it's also feeling out like what am I doing, right? Am I communicating? Yeah. Is it's not
Yeah,
nothing's changing? Okay. So what
right.
am I going to do next? Like that's it. It's all about you. Like what am I going to do next if this person isn't
Yep.
receptive? Like maybe I do have to sadly limit the time with them,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And I know right now we're like talking about I'm going to say normalized relationships like
Yeah,
yeah, some people do come from super toxic, super
sure.
nasty or abusive family members, and that might look totally different where the boundaries totally like,
Yeah,
no, like this person has disrespected me for years and I don't even go to their house or I'm not
right.
even how do I work on that? So I do want to make that clear. But maybe it is limited time. Like one of my clients said that
Yeah,
she was like, I'm just learning that I love my family, but because they're not that receptive on things, I enjoy them in small doses. So she goes, I can
yeah,
actually tolerate it when I'm like, oh, okay, that we're going to this event. And she said,
right.
I'm learning that I need a buffer, that it's like, I don't want to just be with my mom one on one for more than usually 15 minutes because then I start getting
Yeah,
triggered and she's not
right.
receptive. But if we are like, hey, let's all go out to dinner and there's seven family members, I'm like, oh, I'm enjoying, like you said, I'm enjoying this time with her. And I also know that it's limited time. So I know we're going to go have dinner, enjoy quality time, and then me and my husband are going to dip. And she's
Right.
like, and I enjoy it. I'm like, oh, I had fun with my
Yeah,
mom, you know?
right.
And I was like, well, I'm glad you're learning that. And she's like, yeah, because before I was just trying to like go to her house, be one on
Yeah,
one, ask her what she wanted to do, and it was always a mess. but it's like exploring those relationships too. And then,
Right.
some people might be like, actually, no, I literally can barely ever see this person unless it's a
Right.
family big holiday event, and I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
Right.
So it's always to each their own too.
Yeah, and I think if mediating what you expect from other people, knowing that you can't control their reaction, you can't control their behavior, is
Mhm.
huge. Because
Right.
I think we go into it feeling like a miracle worker sometimes, like I'm going to share this pivotal thing
Right.
and we're going to have a beautiful moment and it's all going to be great. And what if it's not? Understanding that the other person is kind of a loose cannon. You don't
Right.
really know what version you're going to get. And, I actually had this conversation just today with a client where she reconnected with a family member that she really truly believes she deserves an apology from, but they've kind of reconnected about other things. And I told her, listen, you're never probably gonna get the I'm sorry that the little version of you wanted, but maybe this is the best you're gonna get. And the
Mhm.
best you're going to get is reminiscing about when you were young and things that bring both of you joy to think about and share in together. And maybe that's the best that this person can give you. Is
Right.
that enough for right now, or does it have to be enough forever? And she was like, I think it's okay for right now. Like it's
Right.
enough.
Hmm.
And that's fine, with the clear understanding that they're never going to have this beautiful, vulnerable, close connection
Yeah.
that she's really deeply longing for, but
Hmm.
that's what you're going to get, and she's okay with that.
Right.
Building her system of people that she can turn to for other things.
Right.
So,
And
you know,
accepting that's important too. Like that comes
yeah,
with like the grief and acceptance of your this person's not going to be what I want.
yeah,
That's super hard for people because what usually happens right is we get into that like a family dynamic of relationships. We talked about the same with like intimate relationships. Like you're waiting for this person to just be the person you want them to be and the
right,
person you want them to be. And then if you don't set boundaries and know what steps you need to take to distance, get out, look at yourself, what's working for me, what's not working for me, oh, this person didn't change, they're doing this, then it's like, okay, then you're going to keep hitting your head against a wall with family. And family stuff's hard because it is family. And a lot of times people don't want to let family go like that.
yeah. So, what would you say in the situation where a person is having trouble setting boundaries with family members because they're dependent on them, either like for money or housing or insurance or something? How would you tell someone that boundaries need to be set when there's conditions?
I think that's one of those things where I think that's one of the hardest things that we see, right?
Yeah.
Because in reality, I want to say, I'm going to say, preface this with I know it's not that easy, but
Yeah.
the more you become independent, the less you worry about boundaries because you're
Sure.
like, I don't need you for anything.
Yeah.
And as much as we want, like, I think it's healthy to take help and accept help.
Mm-hmm.
Is it help because one, is it unconditional or is it conditioned, like you said? Like the stereotypic, I'll give you money, but you're not allowed doing A, B, and C. And
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, I have to do X, Y, and Z or my parents won't pay for my stuff. Well, then maybe we need to figure out, well, how do I learn to just be dependent of or independent of them so I don't have to live this life? But if you're that dependent on it where you're like, well, I'm not willing to,
Yeah.
then you have to accept some of that the stuff that you don't like, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the
Exactly.
hardest thing people get into. If they're going to give me this, I have to act this way, but I don't want to act this way.
Right.
Well, then you have to figure out how to not need them for that thing.
Right.
Right? And if it's finance, like the example you gave, if it's finance, it literally is, how do I become more financially stable? What steps do I need to take if I am going to accept this right now? But if I don't want this in the next 6 months, year to
Yeah.
2 years, I want to be able to say, you know what, actually, I'm going to go do this. And if you cut me off, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And that's scary to do for people. That's usually like that weaning off, and that power play move can be scary.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think that of course, it is easier said than done, right? But the hardest part is weighing whether the boundary that you need is worth giving up all the things that you are relying on, for sure. You know, is it that important to you to be able to move out? Is it that important to you to get a new car, to, go on that vacation, maybe not finish college? Like, there's so many things that I
Yeah.
hear, like, I've
Mhm.
even dealt with clients, like, oh, well, I don't want to finish college, but my parents will kick me out, and then I have nowhere to go, and my job doesn't make enough. And I'm just like perpetually unhappy because my job doesn't pay enough. I can't be independent, but I also can't leave college. Like, what am I going to do? And at that point, it is your now the goal has changed. Your goal now is how can I be okay with either getting kicked out and figuring it out or just making peace with the fact that I have to finish this path.
Right. It is, you're always weighing it out, right? Like what
Yeah.
is my cost and my loss, right? Like I'm giving up and some of it might be simple. Like I want to
Yeah.
go out and if I live at my parents' house, I still have curfew. And it's
Right.
like, okay, is curfew that big of a deal for you to like get school and stuff paid for, right?
Right. Yep.
Versus, oh, my parents tell me I literally can't do anything. Like I'm not allowed going out or I have to do X with them every week and I have to, make sure I date this person and I do, it's like specifics
Mm-hmm.
where you felt like you're very confined, then it's like you have to also see what is actually hindering your growth too,
Right.
right? Because that the reason I'm bringing that up is because it also goes into like a lot of adults too. Because as
Yeah.
much as it's like we're talking about kids in school, that also is like you become the adult who's like, well, I'm not going to set a boundary with my parents because they still give me X, Y, and Z,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm limited because I'm so needed upon what they give me. Where like, has it stopped you from growing and being who you actually want to become though? So
Yeah.
I think that becomes risky territory when you're like, I like your example of school. Like maybe it's not a big deal, but if somebody's
Right.
saying, like I always think about the stuff with like when we had Nick on when he was talking about LGBTQ plus stuff,
Yeah.
and for him it's kind of like he was giving examples like I'm not going to hide who I am
Mm.
to satisfy you. So what does that boundary look like? But
Right.
what's the severity of the loss? Like who you actually are and you're just struggling
Mm-hmm.
or dang, I mean, I guess I can get through school for like 2 years and then I'm
Right.
free,
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
length of what it looks like too is
For
something you
sure.
have to look
Yeah,
at.
there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
But, I also think what people don't do enough with family boundaries is talk to the person about why it's so hard for them
Right.
to meet you where you are, right?
Hmm.
Like obviously in like Nick's examples, those things are pervasive, like when it comes to like a belief system or a value system or something like that. That can be a little bit tricky because very often those things are not going to change. But, with just my example earlier, or, why can I not date this person if I'm reliant on you for money, right? Why is it so important? Why is that the condition? Like, can we have a conversation about
Right.
that? What is it about my judgment that you don't trust enough that
Hmm.
this is your line in the sand, you know?
Right.
And that can be scary when you have people who are a little defensive or not receptive, obviously. But I
Yeah.
think that that's another way to open the conversation. Like, I don't understand why this is so important to you, but it feels like a restriction on me. So I need to
Hmm.
understand where you're coming from.
Right. I think that understanding is important because as soon as you talk, though, my mind flipped to like the parents and boundaries, right?
Sure.
Because even though we're talking about, I think a lot of what we're talking about is like young adults right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of our conversation is veered towards
Yeah.
that. And I think it's hard because parents, there's that range we always talk about, but parents struggle with that too, right? Like, what is the consequence? Like, I get when parents are like, if my kid drops out of school and they're sitting at home doing nothing,
Yeah.
absolutely not, right? I'm not going to supply all your goods and pay for everything if you're not working towards something. So there, I
Right.
mean, I've heard parents say like,
Sure.
"Hey, that's fine if you don't want to go to school, but you have to have a job." Like that was
Yeah.
my parents' rule. Like when my
Right.
brother like didn't want to go to college, they were like, "Got to get a job." My brother went, and then I didn't have to work because I was in school. And so it's
Right.
kind of like, what's the trade-off? But you know, when you have parents setting their healthy boundaries, but I think the hard part is like what you're bringing up. Like, are you guys communicating and like understanding
Mm-hmm.
why this is so important, or can we come up with other options?
Right.
You brought up that. I thought that that's a good example of, If somebody's like, oh, I have to go to school because my parents are making me,
Mm-hmm.
was that a conversation that was ever had? Do you have other aspirations? Do your parents
Right.
even know, like, hey, I don't really want to go to college. I stink at it, but how could I do X, Y, and Z instead? And if
Right.
that doesn't happen, there's just like this is just the road I have to do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's so hard. Obviously, it's so complicated, but I think the root of it, like everything else, is just really trying to keep open conversation, and at least conversation can be a one-way street until the other person opens the gate,
Right.
right? You can make your opinions known, you can kind of gently share the way that you're feeling or your vulnerabilities with the other person and just be like, this is just how I'm feeling. This is my threshold for this situation, or this is what I'm hoping we can work towards. Maybe you're not there yet, but I'm putting it on the table for you. So ball's in your court. And a lot actually can change,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like you being introspective enough to understand like why you need a boundary, what's missing, and what you're hoping for, and then communicate that to the other person.
Right. Right. And in family dynamics, that's if we can wrap up on that, but
Yeah.
it's a lot because you are, again, it's hard to set boundary with family because you
Yeah.
either need them for stuff, you
Mhm.
want them for stuff, or there's so many emotions and you trying to say, questioning, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna figure myself out, but this is my family. So how do I tell them no? How do I say I disagree with you? How do I say I don't want that? How do I communicate
Yep.
with them if they're not even the ones teaching me how to do it?
Right.
So
Yeah.
boundaries are hard.
Yeah. But, as always, I think we rely on communication. It's a skill that we need. So everybody's got to work on setting your boundaries, talking to people, being honest, and being receptive.
Yes. Speaking of boundaries, before we end, look how cute this is. Everybody can see this. One of my clients actually got me this because I'm like the queen of boundaries. Look how cute this is. It says, can you see it?
Be kind and full of love. But have boundaries like a
Yeah. I
I
was like,
love
I literally have had this. She got me for this maybe like 2 years ago, and I have it on my desk. And I always
that.
laugh because we're always talking about boundaries. And I always look down, and if I'm having a moment where I'm like angry or frustrated, I'm like, where am I lacking a boundary? I'm obviously lacking a boundary
There
somewhere.
it is.
Then
Right.
I have to communicate, like, what am I not telling this person? What are my needs? It's like that walking yourself through
Exactly.
that.
Right.
So it's kind of like I'm the queen of boundaries. 'Cause I always say, oh, you're like, I always tell this client, like, you seem like you're a little angry or resentful. Like, have you lacked boundaries lately? And it's always like, yes, in all the ways. Because it's like,
I love that. Yeah.
we're always lacking boundaries. And again, I'm going to repeat, family boundaries can be sometimes the hardest ones to set.
Yeah. 100%.
All right,
So,
squad. Well, thanks for visiting us again. And if you have any comments for family boundaries or any issues with your family lacking boundaries, we would love to hear it.
and we would love to give you some feedback. So, thanks for joining, and we will see you next time for episode 35.
See you next time.
Bye.